Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news at 6 on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses informal meeting of BRICS leaders. Chinese President Xi Jinping praises India's strong resolve in fighting terror, appreciates its role in guiding the progress of the group. G20 summit starts in Hamburg. World leaders meet for the first working session. Focus on terrorism, global economy and climate summit to see a US President Donald Trump being asked to reconsider pullout from the Paris climate deal. Kashmir put on high alert ahead of the first death anniversary of Hizbul Mujahideen militant Burhan Wani. Mobile internet and broadband services suspended indefinitely. Police presence increased in Tral area to prevent assembly of people. And CBI files corruption case against RJD chief Lalu Prasad. Conduct searches at 12 locations. RJD and other opposition leaders call the action political vendetta. Union Minister Venkaiah Naidu refutes the charge, says CBI is only doing its duty. Well, at a time when India and Chinese troops are engaged in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation in Sikkim, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping appreciated each other's efforts in advancing the BRICS agenda in Hamburg. Xi Jinping hosted the internal meeting of the BRICS grouping as its current chairperson. Later, both shook hands and had a brief conversation. In their speeches, the two leaders talked about terrorism and economic momentum among the member countries.
BRICS leaders met informally ahead of the G20 meeting in Hamburg. Addressing the participants, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said both BRICS and G20 groups should address terrorism, including its financing, franchisees, safe havens, as well as support and sponsors. The Prime Minister also appreciated Chinese President Xi Jinping for hosting the 9th BRICS summit in September in Xiamen province.
राष्ट्रपति शी की अध्यक्षता में ब्रिक्स की गतिशीलता तथा पॉजिटिव मोमेंटम ने हमारे आपसी सहयोग को और भी गहरा किया है.
Speaking immediately after Prime Minister Modi, Chinese President Xi Jinping appreciated India's strong resolve against terrorism and its social and economic development. He also praised the momentum that BRICS had acquired under India's chairmanship and through the outcomes of Goa summit in 2016. It will, however, be interesting to see if this appreciation translates into actual bilateral interaction between the two countries, who are locked in a standoff over boundary issues in Sikkim. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, China on Thursday reiterated its stand on road construction near Sikkim border, saying it was a legitimate and normal action as the road was being constructed on its own territory. Hardening its stance against India, China said New Delhi had no right to object to the road construction in Doklam area and that India must pull back troops for any peaceful talk to take place. Chinese Foreign Ministry also rejected India's security concern in the region, saying India's increased activity on the border area was rather a matter of concern for China's security. The ties between the two countries have been deteriorating ever since the Indian troops prevented the Chinese from construction in the area. On Thursday, Beijing made it clear that its President Xi Jinping will not have a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Germany, saying that the atmosphere was not right for the meeting. Meanwhile, Chinese army carried out exercises simulating real battle scenarios at high altitude areas in Tibet. The PLA tested new equipment, including a light battle tank, besides conducting live firing exercises.
我们并不明白印方所谓的中国的修路行动给印方带来严重安全风险的依据是什么？中方在自己的领土上修路，这是主权国家的正当行为，合理。
Well, joining me for a chat right now is our correspondent Akhilesh Suman. Well, Akhilesh, the standoff at the border between India and China seems to be escalating with each passing day. What's being done to try and defuse the situation?
Actually, this is a sign from Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping that they have shaken hand, and they have also talked on issues. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, they talked on various issues of common concern, of international concern. Though it was a pole-side meeting and every G20 leaders and BRIC leaders were meeting informally to each other. So this is the opportunity when you get informal talks and when you can talk privately without your private secretary or without your assistant. So this is really has to be seen that how it translates, because Chinese policy has always been very strange. What you talk, it cannot be translated into action. And one side of China speaks in some other tone, another side of China does something else. So this is the time when India has also hardened its stand on the strategic issues, because the area where Chinese troops are there, it's really a very security concern and a strategic concern, because it is a trilateral between China, India, Bhutan and Sikkim is there. And in that case, India cannot just shed off its concern. And China is having very strange road and land complex in coming years, last for 1 year. And in the name of OBOR, it wants that every country should oblige them without having any security concern. Right. The way Chinese think about Tibet, the way Chinese think about Taiwan, the way Chinese think about Hong Kong, they want that other countries should not think about their own political concerns. And that is why India has taken a stand that CPEC cannot be translated without talking to India. And if you are going to that, it is really you are in a way intruding into Indian territory without having any talk with us. So this is what China is concerned about, that India is trying to up the ante with their unilateral decision that they will go for OBOR. And I think that it is not very easy thing. India is also second largest population in the world and the biggest democracy in the world, and China is the largest population in the world. But this is not the right time that China should up the ante on the territorial issues at the time when already there are mechanisms to talk about territorial issues, to talk about border issues. And this is something that happens on the Indian-Chinese border, that when there is some issue, there are hotlines working, there are soldiers who go into body blows, but they don't fire guns. This is happening. This is a positive sign that their guns are not firing. But the political mouthpiece are very loud in China, while India is silent. So it will be very interesting to see that how it translates into G20 and whether the Prime Minister Narendra Modi will have a chance for going into a serious discussion with President Xi Jinping in Hamburg anytime in the next one day.
Indeed. And, you know, as far as the border situation itself is concerned, what are the Chinese concerns and what is it that they want from India, and what is it that they want India to do to ensure that, you know, status quo is maintained?
Actually, China doesn't recognize that India is so close to Bhutan or Bhutan is so close to India, because in all practical manners, India takes care of Bhutan's defense. And also we have some interaction on foreign policy issues. And Bhutan doesn't have any diplomatic relations with China because of their own concern. It is not that India has insisted Bhutan to not having any diplomatic. From the very beginning, Bhutan had closed its border with China, and China, they had a fear that China will grab the territories of Bhutan. So that is why China is very, in a way, if China thinks that how can India talk on behalf of Bhutan, but it is the Bhutan's call that India will talk when the defense issues are arising. And when Chinese troops doesn't care about the sovereignty of a small country, one of the smallest country in the world is Bhutan, and China, if it doesn't recognize that it has also sovereignty issues, it has also territorial concerns. That is why India came forward. And China wants that India should not indulge into issues of Bhutan's security and Bhutan's defense. And this is the biggest objection of China, is that we will deal with Bhutan, even when the time that Bhutan has very clear in the past also that we will have some sort of relationship on defense issues with India. So this is the major issue that is concerning, or you may say distressing China, that how can India takes care of Bhutan.
All right. On that Thank you, Akhilesh Suman, for joining us there with all those details and putting things into perspective for us. Moving on now, of course, the G20 summit began in Hamburg in Germany on Friday, with world leaders sitting together for the first working session of the meet. The focus of the first session is terrorism, global economy and climate. World leaders are expected to ask US President Donald Trump of taking the lead in addressing climate change, a concept he refuses to accept. Trump has already pulled his country out of the Paris climate deal. He is likely to be asked to reconsider that position. The summit will also see Trump coming face-to-face with the Chinese President Xi Jinping as Washington raises pressure on Beijing to rein in North Korea.
Wenn wir kompromissbereit sind, wenn wir uns aufeinander zubewegen, ohne aber, das sage ich ganz ausdrücklich, auch uns zu sehr zu verbiegen.
Well, earlier, police arrested several protesters before the summit kicked off. Water cannons were used on protesters as police started to remove people from various sit-ins and blockades throughout the city centre. Dozens of policemen were also injured in clashes between the two sides. It's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Hydroelectric cell has been invented by us in India. It is internationally recognized, accepted, and it's a low cost, which is non-toxic. It does not use any of chemicals in it. Besides this, it's a portable, can be used anywhere, anytime, day, night.
Watch Eureka with Dr. R.K. Kotnala, Chief Scientist at National Physical Laboratory, Delhi, only on Rajya Sabha television.
I think they're ready to surrender.
आईएनए की बागी फौजियों पर अंग्रेज देशद्रोह का मुकदमा चलाएंगे।
उन तीनों के बचने के चांसेस कम हैं।
ये कोई आम केस नहीं, कोर्ट मार्शल है। बोला भाई, ये केस आप कांग्रेस के लिए नहीं, सुभाष बोस के लिए लड़ी।
Lieutenant Gobak Singh Dillon, Captain Shah Nawaz Khan, Captain P.K. Sehgal. Section 41, waging war against the king. You are charged with murder. Do you plead guilty to the charges read out?
ईमानदारी से आजादी के लिए लड़ने वाली अगर कोई फौज है तो उसका नाम है आजाद हिंद फौज।
The safety, honor and welfare of your country comes first, always.
British Indian Army hand you over to the Japanese Imperial Army.
हिंदुस्तान और अंग्रेजों के बीच एक धागा था, वो टूट गया।
इस बार कुछ ऊपर नीचे हुआ तो देश में बवाल मच जाए। अब जनता किसी अंग्रेज को नहीं छोड़ेगी।
रात दिन अपने सीने विच वजदी आजादी दे राग नू बंद कर ला।
अंग्रेजी अफसरों ने साडी हिफाजत नहीं की, तो वो हमारी वफादारी के हकदार किस तरह हो सकते हैं?
आज हिंदुस्तानी फौज के पास अपना असली मकसद है, हिंदुस्तान की आजादी।
तुम मुझे खून दो, मैं तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा।
ये मुकदमा पूरी इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी का है।
क्योंकि हमने वो दिन देखा है जब हमें ऐसा लगा था कि हमने हिंदुस्तान को वाकई आजाद कर दिया।
देश की आजादी की लड़ाई कोर्ट में लड़ी जा रही है और इस वक्त पूरा देश एक साथ तैनात है।
This trial and its judgment shall be remembered throughout history.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, the CBI on Friday registered a corruption case against former Railway Minister Lalu Prasad, his wife Rabri Devi and son Tejasvi Yadav. The case pertains to their alleged involvement in irregularities to do with the leaders or rather tenders for hotels in Ranchi and Puri in 2006. Meanwhile, Union Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu has said that the government has no role in the CBI raids.
The Central Bureau of Investigation on Friday registered a corruption case against former Bihar Chief Minister and RJD Chief Lalu Prasad. Lalu Prasad is accused of helping a private firm get a tender for maintenance of 2 railway hotels in 2006 when he was Railway Minister. Also named in the CBI case are Lalu's wife Rabri Devi, his son Tejasvi Yadav, former MD of Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Cooperation and directors of private firms. Earlier, the CBI conducted searches at 12 locations across Patna, Delhi, Gurugram and other places.
प्राथमिक इंक्वायरी में ये पाया गया कि ये टेंडर अवार्ड करने में कुछ गड़बड़ियां की गई हैं और इस प्राइवेट कंपनी को फेवर्स शो किया गया है और उसकी एवज में श्री लालू प्रसाद यादव और उनकी फैमिली को पहले एक जमीन दी गई.
Hitting out at Prime Minister Modi and the BJP, the RJD chief called the searches a conspiracy.
31 मई 2004 को मैंने उसके पहले ये सब हैंडओवर हो चुका था. एनडीए की सरकार थी. चुप करिए ना. अटल बिहारी जी वाजपेयी प्रधानमंत्री थे.
Lalu's party, the RJD and other opposition leaders also accused the BJP of indulging in vendetta and said it will fight the charges legally and politically.
Today's date shall go down in contemporary history as one of the darkest days. You know why I say this, and I say this with conviction, that there is a predictability about these kind of agencies. You can actually say that where they are going to sit next. You know why? Because suddenly these instruments have become new alliance partners. These agencies have become new alliance partner for the BJP.
तो रेलवेज ने 13 साल से उस टेंडर को कैंसिल नहीं किया. जवाब है मालूम नहीं. क्या रेलवे अब टेंडर को कैंसिल करेगी? जवाब है मालूम नहीं. क्या रेलवे ने उस कंपनी के खिलाफ कार्रवाई की जिसको टेंडर दिया गया है? जवाब नहीं. तो अब आप निर्णय कर लीजिए.
Law takes its course. No problem. But there are apprehensions in the minds of people whether this is a selective right in order to silence Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav.
However, Union Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu said the government and the BJP had no role to play in the CBI searches.
The government or the party has no role in it. Let me make it very clear. Instead of facing the charges and answering the charges, making political allegation against the government and the BJP has become a fashion.
A general alert was sounded across the state after the CBI action that started at 7 a.m.
जो भी सीबीआई की कार्रवाई चल रही है उसके मद्देनजर पॉलिटिकल रेमिफिकेशंस की संभावना बनी हुई है. इस संभावना को देखते हुए हमने पूरे राज्य में अलर्ट किया है और जो संवेदनशील इलाके हैं वहां पर हमारी पेट्रोलिंग चल रही है. हर जिलों के पास में अपने रिजर्व बल भी हैं.
The searches come weeks after the Income Tax Department surveyed locations in New Delhi and adjoining areas over corruption charges against Lalu's daughter Misa Bharti and her husband Sailesh Kumar. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, Vice President Muhammad Hamid Ansari today said that Mahatma Gandhi's dream of India is incomplete. At a program hosted by the Harijan Sevak Sangh, he said efforts should be made to make a model India. The Vice President also inaugurated a museum on Kasturba's life in the complex.
Vice President Muhammad Hamid Ansari visited the Harijan Sevak Sangh campus in Delhi on Friday. This is the place where Mahatma Gandhi initiated several movements. Inaugurating a museum based on Kasturba Gandhi's life, the Vice President said the need of the hour was to follow in Gandhi's path.
गांधी जी ने जिसका ख्वाब देखा था वो देश बना के तब आराम करें. उससे पहले आराम नहीं कर सकते. अभी वो काम खत्म नहीं हुआ है. कभी कभी हम भटक भी जाते हैं मगर ठीक है रास्ते से भटके वापस आ गए. मालूम है रास्ता कहाँ है. सीधी सड़क वो बता के गए थे. उसी सीधी सड़क पे हमको जाना है उसी मंजिल पे हमको पहुंचना है।
Vice President Ansari also said Gandhi had always believed that education is the bearer of change in society. Mahatma Gandhi's granddaughter Tara Gandhi Bhattacharya was also present on the occasion.
लोकतंत्र में सरकार नहीं, जनता की जिम्मेदारी होती है और जब तक हम समाज में व्यक्ति की और समाज की सामूहिक और व्यक्ति के स्तर पर जब तक हम अपनी मानसिकता नहीं बदलते हैं तब तक यह नहीं जाएगा। इसके लिए बहुत प्रयास करने होंगे और सबसे बड़ा प्रयास होगा और सबसे सफल प्रयास होगा बच्चों की शिक्षा और युवाओं की शिक्षा के लिए।
जो भी समस्या है उस समस्या का हल किस तरीके से होगा, तो हम लोग अगर सबको पर्कुलेट नहीं करेगा, वो मैसेज अगर पर्कुलेट नहीं होगा, गांधी जी का मैसेज पर्कुलेट नहीं होगा तो नहीं हो पाएगा।
Gandhi founded the Harijan Sevak Sangh in 1932 and its purpose was to remove untouchability from Hindu society and turn it into a society that believes in atonement for sinners. Panchanan Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Kashmir was put on high alert and security measures were tightened ahead of the first death anniversary of Mujahideen terrorist Burhan Wani on Saturday. Mobile internet and broadband services were suspended indefinitely since yesterday. Police increased its presence in Wani's native village in Thrall area to prevent assembly of people. Burhan Wani's death in an encounter with security forces last year had triggered massive protests and unrest across the valley. Over 80 people were killed and thousands were injured in daily clashes between security forces and protesters over 4 months. Separatists have called for a strike on July 8th for those who were killed in action against stone-pelting mobs.
अभी तक का जो एंटिसिपेशन है उसमें यही चल रहा था कि कहीं ना कहीं कुछ प्रोग्राम किए जा सकते हैं या सेपरेटिस्ट द्वारा कोई कॉल दी जा सकती है, बट अभी तक ऐसा कोई दिख नहीं रहा है। बट फ्रॉम द सिक्योरिटी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, चाहे वो नेशनल हाईवे पे है या साउथ कश्मीर में या श्रीनगर टाउन में, डाउनटाउन एरिया में, वहाँ सिक्योरिटी बीफ अप करी गई है और प्रिकॉशनरी मेजर के तौर पे रिस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाई गई हैं।
The Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly today passed the state GST bill amid boycott by opposition. But this Jammu and Kashmir became the last state to join the One Nation, One Tax regime. The bill moved by the Finance Minister Hasib Trabu was adopted by a voice vote in the absence of opposition parties, which accused the PDP-BJP government of undermining the special status of the state. The bill was moved in the Assembly after a presidential order which assured that the special status of the state guaranteed by Article 370 of the Constitution will be preserved. The GST regime will roll out in the state at midnight tonight.
इससे पहले मैं महामहिम राष्ट्रपति जी का आभार प्रकट करूंगा, उनको धन्यवाद दूंगा कि प्रेसिडेंशियल ऑर्डर जो है वो पास हो गया है और जम्मू कश्मीर में जीएसटी लागू हुआ है। मैं धन्यवाद करता हूं हमारे ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर का, फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर साहब का, लॉ मिनिस्टर हैं, होम मिनिस्टर हैं, उनका भी धन्यवाद।
Well, let's now take a look at some other developments from around the country and nationwide. India's new anti-hijacking law, which came into force today, prescribes capital punishment in the event of death of any person. The 2016 Anti-Hijacking Act replaced a 1982 law, according to which hijackers could be tried only in the event of death of hostages such as flight crew, passengers and security personnel. The new law mandates the central government to confer powers of investigation, arrest and prosecution on any officer of the central government or the NIA. The Supreme Court asked former BCCI President Anurag Thakur to tender an unconditional, univocal and categorical apology. This was in order to get relief from the contempt proceedings initiated against him. A bench of justices also said that the earlier affidavit of apology filed by Thakur would not be considered. He must now file a one-page short affidavit tendering unconditional apology. The Supreme Court today said that all issues arising out of Aadhaar will be finally decided by its constitutional bench. A three-judge bench has asked the parties to urge the Chief Justice to set up a constitution bench to decide the issues relating to Aadhaar. The apex court, however, had allowed the centre to seek Aadhaar card voluntarily from citizens for extending benefits of schemes like LPG subsidy, Jan Dhan scheme and public distribution system. The apex court has ordered to halt to further counselling and admissions to IITs in respect to the entrance tests under JEE Advanced. A bench of Justice Deepak Mishra and A.M. Khanwalkar also restrained the High Courts from entertaining any writ petition relating to counselling and admissions to the IITs from today onwards. The Finance Ministry has asked all central ministries to ensure revised rates of allowances as per the 7th Central Pay Commission. All allowances are given effect from July 1st, 2017. It will benefit 34 lakh civilian employees and 14 lakh defence personnel. Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with some news from the world in fact, in Global Buzz. The United Nations Security Council imposed sanctions on Jamaat-ul-Ahrar, a splinter group of the Pakistan Taliban, subjecting it to an arms embargo. The Security Council's Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee added Jamaat-ul-Ahrar to the ISIS and Al-Qaeda sanctions list yesterday. China said on Friday that it opposes the use of freedom of overflight as an excuse to harm its security. This comes after 2 US bombers reportedly flew over the disputed South China Sea. The US Air Force, however, asserted the right to treat the region as international territory despite China's claim to virtually the entire waterway. North Koreans celebrated the country's first intercontinental ballistic missile test with a mass rally and dance in Pyongyang late on Thursday night. Videos of the supposed celebration shows thousands of people, including the state's high-ranking officials and soldiers, gathering at Kim II's Sung Square. The celebrations included a colorful firework display. The Egyptian army said 26 soldiers were killed or wounded on Friday in attacks on checkpoints in the Sinai Peninsula, where the Islamic State group is conducting an insurgency. Authorities are still unsure about the exact death toll. The military said it killed 40 terrorists as it clashed with extremists in North Sinai. At least 28 inmates died in a fight between 2 rival gangs in a high-security prison in Mexico. The victims were stabbed and beaten to death, with some decapitated. An investigation has been ordered by the governor. The fight is said to have been triggered by a permanent feud between the 2 gangs. That's it on this newscast. Have a good evening.